And we are back one final time. Well, a word that was often repeated after Governor Andrew Cuomo unveiled the deep cuts in his first executive budget was pain. School districts, healthcare workers, and hospitals, and state worker unions, as Cuomo predicted, they all howled in protest to his proposals, insisting that the reductions he is seeking now are unsustainable. Well, my next guest takes issue with this word and that characterization. Watertown Mayor Jeff Graham writes today on his blog that the term pain is actually all relative, and he thinks previous budgets have actually been filled with just as much pain for many New Yorkers. Thanks very much for your time tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, Liz. Glad to be here.
Okay, so you believe that it's not appropriate to characterize this discussion and these cuts as painful, and I am wholly guilty of that, apparently. So explain your thinking.
Well, I read the lead sentence in the Post this morning. It said shrieks were heard in the state capitol when the budget was announced yesterday. I doubt there were really shrieks. I know that's literary license, and I doubt there's the level of pain that's being suggested. I think when the media sometimes keeps repeating the idea that this budget is full of pain and suffering and it's draconian, well, they probably haven't really met Draco yet, because this budget is basically the same spending levels as the year before, or slight decreases. It's just that it doesn't measure up to New York's automatic increases of 12, 13%. So I think framing it as a painful experience forgets the fact that this is a real opportunity for New York.
An opportunity, what does that mean exactly to you?
Well, just what Governor Cuomo said. I think he's framed it perfectly. He's got everyone back on their heels. The other day he said that the budget process was like Enron, and all of a sudden Dean Skelos is saying, well, wait, that's a little harsh, or something like that. So you've got the Senate Republican Majority Leader defending the system. That just shows that how entrenched this kind of spending and this kind of status quo budgeting is. And I think what Mr. Cuomo is trying to do, or at least as I see it, is change the whole framework of things so that we don't have these kind of crises every year, because it's the same sound bites every year. I watch your show every year. I see the same sound bites. So it's kind of, it is like Groundhog Day.
A little bit. Budget Groundhog Day. Okay, I understand your point, but let's say this. Andrew Cuomo has also tapped, or he says he will, we haven't seen the executive order yet, some folks to serve on a prison closing task force, much like he's done with Medicaid, much like he's done with mandate relief. In fact, much of the pain, or whatever it is you'd like to call it, we don't know about yet because the details are not there in the budget. He has asked some of these stakeholders to really, in effect, cut themselves, or he'll do it for them. So prisons are big in the North Country. In particular, you have Ogdensburg, and I understand that the governor has said in the past that Ogdensburg would not be on the line, but what if this task force comes back and says it is?
Well, listen, either you accept the premise that New York is functionally bankrupt, or you don't. You just can't continue at these levels of spending and then in the next breath say, but don't cut anything in my district. I understand what he's trying to do. It's a BRAC-like commission that was done with military bases, only he's doing it with prison to try to allow some plausible deniability for lawmakers when the final word comes down. But everyone agrees there has to be cuts. So, you know, it is going to mean, I know they'll try to spread it around, some in Manhattan, some in the North Country, some elsewhere. But it's going to happen. I don't know who gets on these commissions, and I agree that it is sort of an abandonment of legislative authority. But otherwise, you're just not going to get it done. It's going to be the same old thing with the same old people restoring all of these things, and we end up with the kind of fiscal chicanery we've had for years.
But you don't think that there won't be some sort of NIMBYism, if you will, if in fact it comes all sorts of New Yorkers all across the state cheering on Andrew Cuomo. He's clearly rallying people, or trying to rally them to his side. He's clearly setting up a sort of us versus them mentality. But when in fact something like a prison, which has been the economic driver for a lot of upstate communities, gets closed, and even with the incentive of additional economic development aid, I mean, $10 million, that's a lot of money that you have to play around with, but you can't turn a prison into a mall.
Well, no, but if you get off that little patch of real estate where the state capitol is and start talking to real people, small business people, farmers, and so on, they liked what's being said by Governor Christie in New Jersey. They liked what was being said by Carl Palladino when he was mad as hell. Fortunately, Governor Cuomo has considerably more social skills than Palladino, so he's able to articulate this. But there is that feeling out there. You know, last week we heard an announcement of a cheese plant closing in St. Lawrence County. We've had a medical supply and a motor manufacturer close in Watertown the past year. There is no Danny Donahue who goes on your show and pines about those jobs the way that they line up to come on your show and talk about state jobs. You know, whenever one state employee or one local teacher gets let go, it creates headlines. Private sector industries let people go all the time because they have to make ends meet, and nobody ever talks about that. And I hope that's what the governor is trying to stress when he says this state has no future as the highest tax state in the nation.
Mayor, I just want to ask you in parting, you know, we made, there were a lot of headlines, speaking of them, regarding this supposed storm that was going to wipe us all out, and I'm just curious what it's like in your neck of the woods today.
It's not bad. It's like the pain in the budget. They said it was the storm of the century, and it turned out to be not much of anything. But we're used to it up here, and we'll just keep shoveling till spring gets here.
Okay, well, if you want to bring your shovel down to my neck of the woods, you could do that. I'm just saying.
Glad to, and always glad to come to Albany.
It's good to see you.